Joe. I'm an adult services librarian at the main library. And I'm here today. We're going to be doing a quick book talk. I'm going to be sharing 5 books with you. But before we get into that, I wanted to do a quick plug for Cartoon Crossroads Columbus, or CXC. If you haven't heard of CXC before, it's Columbus's festival for the cartoon arts. It's put on every year by a partnership of organizations from all over the city, like the Ohio State University, the Wexner Center for the Arts, the Billy Island Cartoon Library and Museum, Columbus College of Art and Design, the Columbus Museum of Art, and of course, Columbus Metropolitan Library. And because we're going to be talking about CXC, we're actually going to be covering 5 different graphic novels or comics for adults today. So, of course, I'm a librarian, so I have to go alphabetically. So we're going to start with this book, The Adventure Zone, Pedals to the Metal. And this is actually the 3rd book in this series, and this might sound a little strange, but these books are based on a podcast by the same name, The Adventure Zone. It's done by the McElroy brothers, Griffin, Travis, Justin, and their father, Clint. And in the podcast, they basically just play Dungeons and Dragons and record it. So in the book here, we're following the adventures of 3 characters, Magnus, Merle, and Taco, as they try to recover these they're called the 7 grand relics, or these weapons that contain this kind of extraordinary power to corrupt anyone who possesses them. And I really like these books. They're so colorful and zany, and the art really captures the kind of that spirit of the podcast. I'd recommend these to anyone who enjoys tabletop role-playing games, or maybe if you've always been interested in tabletop role-playing games but not really known how to get into them. These are really cool books, and I recommend the podcast too. Okay, next. This book is called The American Dream, A Journey on Route 66. It's by Xing Kaur. This graphic novel is a nonfiction travel log. It was written by an American immigrant who now lives in LA, and they decided they wanted to learn more about America by taking kind of like the quintessential American road trip. I really like this book. I like how introspective Xing is about the personal meaning of travel for them, about kind of like the struggling with the ideas of who gets to be a traveler in America versus who's labeled a tourist, and about their sort of wanderlust versus general discontent versus longing for a home. And in addition to being very introspective and a thoughtful book, there's also just some fantastic watercolor vistas that I'm an absolute sucker for. So really enjoyed this book. Okay, next up. This book is by Box Brown. It's called Cannabis, the Legalization of Weed in America. And some of you might be thinking, is this librarian really going to promote a book that encourages drug use? And no, that's not really what this is about. This book is much more an historical examination of the social and spiritual importance of cannabis in various cultures, as well as the ideas and policies, many of them overtly racist, against people of Mexican descent as well as Black people, that led to marijuana being made illegal in America while other drugs, most notably alcohol, were not. I also found this a very interesting read in this era of Black Lives Matter and protests in regards to police brutality committed against Black people and people of color, and the inequities of our social justice system. And I found it enlightening to learn more about how some of those inequities and injustices have kind of been built into the system from the very start. Box has a very kind of iconographic sort of art style that I think he uses to really great effect in this book. And if you enjoy this, if you read it and enjoy it, Box also wrote a graphic novel biography of the wrestler and personality Andre the Giant that you might also really enjoy. Okay, next up, this book was fantastic. It's called Reincarnation Stories. It's by Kim Deitch, who's an absolute legend of the underground comics world. And it was such a fascinating book. This goes from feeling like kind of an autobiography to a graphic novel film history about Western films to this kind of psychedelic narrative about lives lived past, present, and future, and them kind of like intermingling with each other. And the artwork is just amazing. I'm going to share some of the pages from kind of the middle of the book. These pages are done in color. Not all of the book is. Most of it's in black and white, but across the board, the artwork is just amazing. I can't say enough about this. And the last one that I'm going to be sharing with you today. This is a trade reprint of the first 5 editions of the comic The Wilds. It's written by Vita Ayala, with various other artists contributing. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to read the first few lines of the book here. A virus, chemical warfare, deadly new pesticides. No one was sure what was happening. It was a crisis, but then again, so was everything else on the news those days. The sickness was water cooler talk, but nothing serious, right? So, if you're looking for an escape from reality, this might not be the read for you right now, but I still really enjoyed this book. It's got kind of like a zombie apocalypse-esque type thing going on, which I'm a fan of. The difference being that the bacteria infection causes humans to become susceptible to being taken over by plants, which in addition, I can't find my page here, of course, in addition to just being an interesting concept in general, also gets used to really interesting visual effect, which I liked. The story tells, it's a story about these kind of walled compounds of survivors, as well as the quote-unquote runners who go out into the wasteland to get supplies for the communities, as well as the kind of inevitable treachery and betrayal inflicted by their co-human survivors. So that's The Wilds. That's all 5 of the books that I'm going to share, but as a reminder, one last plug for Cartoon Crossroads Columbus. Several of the books that I've shared here are by writers and artists who are guests at this year's festival. So Vita Ayala, Kim Deitch, as well as Xing Ying Kor. They are all guests of this year's festival. They're going to be putting on programs. This year's festival is running from October 1st to 4th. And of course, with everything going on in the world this year's program is going to be done virtually, so you can participate without even leaving your home. If you would like to get more information about CXC and maybe take a look at the program lineup, you can do that online at their website. It's cartooncrossroadscolumbus.org. Okay, that's all from me for now. I really appreciate y'all spending some time with me and hopefully learning about some new books that you're excited about checking out from the library. Keep reading out there, and looking forward to seeing y'all again in person someday.